I was reading zero. I'll say this on the show. Never mind. I'll wait till we're on the show.
Are we on the show?
Not yet. Still hasn't landed. I think we have landed, and as soon as somebody says they are there, then I will hit record. Is anybody there? We got a heart. That's probably
That was
you.
mine. My
And
heart.
another thumbs up. So that means there's at least, oh,
That
there we
was
go.
me summing up.
All right, I'm gonna hit record. Yay! Michael's sister Nino gets the first crown.
Hey, Michael. Hey, Jonna.
Shauna, I don't understand why Shauna didn't get a crown. I thought like it's about who is there the fastest or something, and they like have three of them. Shauna, you should be mad that you didn't get a crown. I hate those stupid crowns. Everyone's like, what the fuck are these? But it doesn't make any sense how they work. Hi, Dani. How are you?
Hi, Emily. I am. How are you?
You are. Yes, basically. It's been a struggle to get back into it. And it wasn't even like my trip was like that relaxing and vacation like. It was just like out of my ordinary. It was not, I mean, we were with Laura's family for most of the time, and then we just had a kind of fun but busy weekend with Mitch, the orgone donor. Who, by the way, Dani, you've done a show with Mitch, haven't you?
I have. I
Yeah.
adore him. Look,
Like
wait.
he's like, oh yes, there you go, right? So Mitch, like, and I don't mean this in any like Mitch is like tall and hunky,
Oh, wow.
right? Like low key, like kind of tall and hunky. I did not expect that, right? Like I didn't like he's like, what did you think? I was short, fat, and bald or something? I was like, no, but like he always wears the hat and he just kind of he doesn't seem like a big guy. He's
Right.
super tan and has like surfer sort of like, legs, whatever going on, and very handsome and like 6'4". He's super
Wow. You know who else is tall and hunky?
Hill.
Tomfoolery.
That doesn't surprise me.
Okay.
That one doesn't surprise me. I like I know he plays tennis like almost every day,
Yes.
and so that one doesn't surprise me as much. And not that I thought he would be like I didn't assume the opposite, but I didn't recognize him. Like they had to come up to me, and I was like, oh my god, like you're tall and hunky. I was like, okay.
You're like, swoon, catch me.
So yeah, so I've been having trouble getting back into the like I just want to like flop around and watch tennis, and of course Wimbledon is on, so that
Okay, maybe there's something in the air because I don't have the same excuse, but I also can barely get it together to do any work.
I mean
What I will
I'm
report,
doing my work, but not without a lot of like okay, like right, like not without a lot of
it's
having to talk myself into it.
yeah, it's like slogging through quicksand. But
Yeah.
the good news is I'm getting pretty good at lefty racquetball.
Oh, nice. You're playing with your left hand?
Oh yeah, I've been playing with my left hand for 3 weeks now because
So
I can't take not playing.
I love it. So this is a topic that I always think about, and I'm surprised more people don't talk about. But finally, somebody asked this question in like the comment section of one of my tennis videos. Like Gil Gross does like a mailbag where he answers questions. I don't think he chose to answer it though. And the question was, when are we going to see somebody with two forehands? Right? There's always these players. There's often players that have like a great serve and a great forehand, but a terrible backhand. And we know that there are ambidextrous people in the world. We also know that like Rafael Nadal, who just retired, was naturally a right-handed person, but his uncle coached him to play left-handed, and that turned out to be like a huge weapon for him, right? So if you can teach someone who's naturally righty to play lefty, why couldn't you teach somebody to have two forehands? Which
Well, I think it's inefficient to have to, like, I find it challenging just to switch. I don't know if I'm holding the racket correctly, but I make a minor adjustment going from forehand to backhand, which is already inefficient. So I think switching hands entirely is probably super very inefficient.
yes, but you have to remember that some people like have a two-handed backhand in tennis,
Yeah,
right?
losers.
No, that most people do now. Like the one,
Really?
yeah, there's like maybe three or four one-handed backhands in the men's top 30 or 450, I think. Yeah, there's like no, I don't even think there's a one-handed backhand in the top 10 right now. It's definitely aging out. So you already are sort of getting the other hand on it to do the two-handed backhand, which so that's part of why I'm not saying this should be a tactic a lot of people should take on, but I'm surprised that there hasn't been somebody. There was a woman named Marion Bartoli who actually did win Wimbledon once, who played with both hands on both sides. So like she didn't instead rather than it's almost like she had two-handed backhands or whatever it is,
Right.
right?
Right.
And she was a very unorthodox player, but highly successful, right?
Mhm.
So I would love to see more weird, unorthodox stuff like that, just for shits and giggles. But yeah,
It's super fun and really great for the brain.
totally.
Yeah. Even when I'm back to playing righty, I still want to mix it up with the lefty just to keep my brain nimble.
I have certain things, like obviously with exercises, you do both sides, but I had certain skills in gymnastics that I wasn't straight righty. I was righty, like I'd say at like a 70-30. I had a few things like dance elements that I preferred to do with my left and whatnot. But yeah, I love balance and symmetry. So
Mhm.
I don't like, right? So for me, the idea of like being, I don't, like everybody, whether you notice it or not, like your right and left arms and legs are not equally sized and shaped and things like that. And that's one of
Right.
the things that like drives me nuts, right? Like I love perfect symmetry.
Well, it's funny because I used to notice on my massage clients, like when they were, I could tell if they like play tennis or play golf because I could see it in their body that one is more overdeveloped. And I thought I will never do that to my body, but I love racquetball so much I will. I was lefty in gymnastics, but I always twisted right.
There's a lot that's pretty common.
So I had to switch my feet like on the beam for dismounts so
Right.
that I would, I would like switch them in the air so I could twist the right way.
Right. Yeah, I mean there's like there's some people like do you remember when Fritz started the weird thing with he wanted us to step out of our back handsprings on the opposite leg than we normally were. Do you remember this?
No.
Okay, this may have been so like I
Wait,
was
on the floor?
no on beam.
On beam. Okay.
Okay, so like I'm a
Why?
righty for almost exactly what you're talking about. So for a righty, generally you're reaching up to do a twisting dismount, and you're bringing your left arm over your chest. So you're
Correct.
towards the right, but bringing your left arm over. And he felt that if you stepped out with your left foot, your hips would be open and it would be easier to twist. Which and he was obsessed with this for a long time, and he made us do it this way, right? And then eventually, all of a sudden, one day that was over, and we went back to the other way. But which is actually the other way is better because having to come up and over your leg actually makes you block better. So you're not just twisting off the end of the beam and you're standing up, but like
Yep.
because of this, it wasn't just okay. I want you to do that way for a dismount. He's like, I want you to do all your back handsprings that way on the beam, and it was like, no, like no. But yeah. So there's lots of stuff like that. Like I was one of the few people. I was equal on like switch leaps. I could do them on either leg.
Okay.
I could swing either leg or have right. And some of like the turgetes and twisting things, I could do some of those things both ways. So, I don't know, but I think there's an advantage to at least being somewhat balanced that way. If you're just like completely dominant with one side, like I feel like over the course of your life, that's going to lead to like some other sort of like energetic asymmetry that is harder to explain, but definitely happening.
1,000%. So when I hula hoop, which I do a few times a week, halfway through I'll switch.
I love it.
I'll hoop one way, hoop the other way. And
Yeah.
right now I'm still rehabbing like the whole hip knee from spraining it in Hapkido.
Mhm.
So when I'm at the gym, I'll do 3 sets on my left and 2 sets on the right because I'm getting the left stronger. So I agree with you. It's good to like be nimble and like whatever's weak, get it strong, get it to be your. I always correct the like good side, bad side. It's like my first good side, my second good side, my formerly dominant side,
Right.
stuff like that.
So I even do it as much like I will like try and make sure I don't do an even number of times of like going right on the trail or going left on the trail. Like I will do that with like just different. I try. I like to be even that way. I have a book that I always I keep forgetting to read this book. It's a book on super symmetry that I got. Like there's this really cool. Well, it's gone now, but there's other ones, but this one was my favorite. Cool bookstore like right near Harvard because my sister lives in Boston. And I remember going in there one day and like I found this book about supersymmetry that seemed to go along with whatever I had been talking about and in shows or whatever it is. But Supersymmetry is a theoretical concept in particle physics that proposes a symmetry between fermions and bosons, suggesting that each known particle has a heavier superpartner. While not yet experimentally confirmed, it could potentially solve some long-standing mysteries in physics, such as the nature of dark matter and the hierarchy problem. Wouldn't that be interesting if we all learned to be more symmetrical? If that would also decrease the amount of like hierarchy we have in the world, that would be really.
I feel like it would, because then we would be, we would be living in betterarchy. Did I lose you?
I'm here.
So I still do cartwheels all the time on the golf course, and I always make sure to do left, right, so that they're like even and perfect, because I'm going to compete in the Olympics next time they're in
next time they're on a golf course.
Correct.
Yeah, I don't really do any gymnastics anymore. Like I did not stay flexible enough to continue to do that stuff really without hurting myself. I did for several years after I did gymnastics, because I was like breakdancing and things like that, but yeah, I don't know. Every once in a while I'll do a handstand. I can still do handstands, right? But like that's pretty much it. I'm not like wanting to do some wacky move that takes me out of commission for the for the 3 months just to prove to myself that I can, right? So
you and I didn't discuss this, and Rafa is dying to know how tall you are. And I would just like to put out to our tribe, is anyone holding a copy of Apostles of Power, Theft of an Empire? Because if so, I would love to borrow it.
So what Dani is referring to is actually also the title of the podcast we recorded on Monday that will be out tomorrow. If you go to wordspodcast.locals.com, use the promo code welcome to words, all one word in capital, and you will find that episode there. And I did find a copy and order it. We'll see if it comes. Sometimes these like secondhand bookstores, you don't end up getting it. But if you check out our show tomorrow, you'll get to find out what we're talking about. Anywho, and the show is titled Apostles of Power. So thank you, Sister Nino, for the belated birthday. Thank you, Maya. Thank you for all the birthday wishes. I see a couple of them here. Rafa wants to know how tall I am. I'm 5'2". 5'2", Rafa. I hope that resolves the mystery. Yes, we were gone last week, and I've had a birthday between then and now. So,
yeah. Mazel tov. Thank you for coming back to this crazy planet and sticking around.
Way too many like extra things and stuff like that, but it was fun, right? So. Yay, you're happy. You're welcome. I'm happy to have come here just to entertain you, Dani. So
I'm super grateful. Rafa's asking what that is in meters. So Rafa, we were all educated in the United States, which means we're fucking stupid and have no idea about metric system conversion.
Jonna, David Martin. Thank you, Rafa. Shirley, thank you so much. All right. Shall we proceed? Should we just keep talking about nonsense, or should we proceed
nonsense? Let's hit it.
It's actually all nonsense, but like, you know, it's our nonsense or their nonsense. Let's start with your nonsense of the day.
May I please have sharing permission, Miss Moya?
Granted.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okie dokie. So this is going to be a 3-part share. We're going to watch 2 videos, and then we're going to touch in with my favorite propagandist, ChatGPT. Can you see the screen?
I can.
Wonderful. Okay. So, oh no, we're not starting with this one. We're starting with a short clip of the recent Joe Rogan, Bernie Sanders interview. And we'll pick it up from there. Here we go, fair use.
You got to deal with this climate change issue. And I know that, you know, there are some people who think climate change is a hoax. It ain't a hoax. I think the last 10 years have been the warmest on record.
First of all, the reality is that the Earth's temperature has never been static, right? We could both agree on that. It's always been up and down. There's been ice ages and heat waves. And then the Washington Post looked at it. What was the time period that they looked at? That essentially they found that we're in a cooling period. That the Earth over the past X amount of years And this was like a very inconvenient discovery, but they had to report the data, and kudos to them for doing that. Scientists have captured the Earth's climate change over the last 485 million years. Here's a surprising place we stand now. So look at the far end of that graph, and you see we're in a cooling period.
Well, I'm not sure. I didn't read that article, but
Yeah.
the scientists who are out there, I think.
I know, but there's a lot of money involved in that too, Bernie. That's part of the problem. There's a lot of money involved in this whole climate change emergency issue, and there's a lot of control, and that's a big part of this problem.
Okay, any comments before I move on to?
Just that I haven't had a chance to watch that podcast yet. I don't know if I will. But I was reading an article about it the other in Zero Hedge the other night, and it was like they were just laughing at how absolutely unprepared Bernie Sanders was for this show, because Joe Rogan like just destroyed him over and over and over again throughout the whole podcast. Is that true?
Oh, yes, it is true. And even sadder is that like it starts with Bernie going through his notes because he literally prepared and yet was so super unprepared. But again, it's just very hard for me to buy into, is this organic?
Right.
Like what is the setup about? Yeah.
Right. Like it was obviously the point was for Joe Rogan to destroy Bernie Sanders or whatever.
Right. So now Joe Rogan is getting a lot of pushback from the mainstream media machine for being a climate change denier.
Right.
So I thought I'd take us back down memory lane to Joe Rogan's interview with one Candace Owens. This is going to be a bit of a longer clip. This was from 2018. I believe, Emily, that you and I actually commented on this back in 2018.
Yeah.
When it was new.
I'm just going to ask that you make it super tiny in the corner so that we don't get a copy.
Okay, so is that mini player?
Yeah.
Like this?
Yep.
Okay, here we go. Fair use.
91% of one of the studies from 2014.
This is the Union of Concerned Scientists.org.
Yeah. They almost, it's a pretty broad consensus.
Who are they polling? Is it the people that are a part of this .org? That's what I'm asking.
10,306 scientists to confirm over 97% of climate scientists agree, and over 97% of the scientific articles find that global warming is real and largely caused by humans. Right. So my question to you is, if you want to step outside of the scientific consensus, which is vast and involves 10,306 scientists, and just say, I don't believe in it, even if you're right, you don't have enough information to say that.
Right. No, but that's what I said. This is the whole point.
But you're saying you don't believe it.
I don't. Yeah, I would have to have someone sit down and convince me that it was real. I personally don't believe it. That's okay.
But why?
It's good to start at a place of not believing something.
No, it's not.
You think you should start with believing everything?
No, it's not believe either or. Not believe yes, not believe no.
Yeah.
But don't say you don't believe.
Yeah.
Learn.
Tesla's stock is crashing. The headlines say Elon's empire is collapsing. But what if they're all dead?
Learn about it.
Yeah.
Learn about it and then have an opinion. But you're stating this opinion without having any real understanding of what climate science is.
But that's exactly what an opinion is. I'm not going, like I said, if you said that, Candace, you went on to 10,000 college campuses and you said that global warming wasn't real, then we'd have a problem. You and I are just having a conversation.
Yeah, but why have an opinion on something that you don't have data about? This is my question. I don't necessarily have an opinion on climate science. I really don't. Because I don't know much about it. But what I do know is that what I've read is that the vast majority of people who study it are in agreement that human beings are affecting it.
So just my recall on a lot of things that I read, and this was a while ago, so this is when I first formed my opinion on not believing this, I read a shit ton of articles. Can't recall the data because, like I said, this wasn't something I was super passionate about. It was like somebody posted something, and then I went on like a tear reading about it. But it was essentially just noting that in a lot of these studies, like when you go and if we had time to sit down and really pull this up, they're polling, 10,000 scientists that are within a community that is like these .orgs. Do you believe in everything that mediamatters.org puts out? for statistics, right? That's a political arm of the Democratic
Talking
Party.
about a different subject.
I know, but
but politics versus science.
But this has been politicized. That's the thing.
Science has been politicized.
Yes, it has. Global warming in particular has been politicized. 100% it has been politicized, right? That's the whole reason I fell down this dark hole one night reading about it. And I was like, you know what? At the end of the day, I don't really care.
It has been politicized, but I think that's also maybe why you're saying you don't agree with it so quickly.
Right.
Because it's an ideological right-wing point.
Right.
Is that global warming isn't real.
Right.
If you're one of those people that thinks global warming isn't real, you're almost always on the right.
Right. And that's fine. But I'm telling you that, like, again, I didn't do a deep dive on all of this because I read about it because it was at a forefront of discussion. So I read about it all night. And my conclusion was that they started pulling up all of these studies from the person that, did this that I did a deep dive on. And they started showing how, like, these community of scientists were in fact somewhere behind that .org as someone that was being funded. So to me, the issue got too politicized for me to believe that global warming was something that was going to wipe out the world. Now,
scientists get funded. That is a fact.
Yes.
But that doesn't mean that the funding affects the scientific research and the data, which they all agree on. And this is universally across the entire planet.
Yeah.
Thousands and thousands of...
I just want to pause. We'll keep playing it. But for Joe to say scientists get funded, but that doesn't mean that funding affects the outcome of their studies is totally asinine.
Well, everything he's saying here, like the thing that I just laughed a few minutes ago about politics and science and whatever, like, oh, how the worm has turned, Joe Rogan, right?
Right. It's such a switcheroo. So we'll just give it a couple more minutes and then we'll get our synthesis, the AI.
All right.
Scientists would not stake their reputation on false data. What they're saying is not that the only reason why the world is getting warm is because human beings. That the only reason why the climate isn't totally static for the rest of eternity is because of human beings. What they're saying is we are negatively impacting our own environment, and we're doing it because we have technology and we use coal.
Yes, it's called pollution. It's called being slobs. That's how the humans are affecting it, right? And if everybody just fucking didn't have to buy a new everything every time they needed something and picked their trash up and put it where it was supposed to go and recycled and blah, blah, blah. Pollution is a movement that everyone could get behind, and they're, fighting pollution by cleaning up and not reusing shit. But there's no money to be made in that, and there's no real arguing to be done in that. So that's not what we have.
So notice, I think you'll see it in the next couple minutes. What kind of vessels both Joe and Candace are sipping from during the climate change conversation, because it happens every time.
All right, cool. Keep going.
And fossil fuels and emissions, and we're raising our CO2 levels, and this is based on data. And this is something that you can look at. You could look at the data and follow where they're getting this information from, and follow how they're making these conclusions, and follow the vast majority of these brilliant people who study this shit their whole life.
Yeah, exactly. And if I was a person that was putting forth policy on climate change, or if I was a person that put out my opinion publicly on climate change, I would do all of that. I'm just not.
I understand what you're saying, but what I'm saying is that you're a very smart person, and people listen to you, and they're going to listen to you for a long time.
But this is what I hate. This is what I hate.
But hold
because
on,
then it's like, Candace, you have to have a formed opinion on everything.
No, you don't have to have a formed opinion on everything. What you do have to have is the ability to know when you don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
But I just said that. I said that to you the entire time.
I said this believe it.
I said I don't believe it. And then you asked me, and I said this wouldn't be the hill I chose to die on because I don't follow it.
But why even say you don't believe in it?
Because I just personally, if you...
How about not have a belief until you really have looked at the data?
Okay, so you would prefer if my language...
It's almost like, what video of you sucking your own wee-wee or something do they have that is convincing you to fight so aggressively for this?
And to censor your guest and tell her what she should say and shouldn't say. And you and I were struck at the time.
I remember,
how rude he was being to her. All right, so we'll just give it another minute or so.
All right.
Here we go.
As opposed to admitting that I do not know this, I wouldn't die on this hill, I've never made a video, I've never made a public statement. You would have preferred if I had just started by saying, I have no opinion.
No, I don't know.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying. You say,
but I said I didn't know.
No, you say I don't believe in it.
Yeah.
I don't believe in it. You're saying really clearly that you don't think it's real.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think it would be the same if I said to you, do you believe in God?
Pause.
Right?
No.
I know almost nothing about like Baha'i, the religion, or something like that, right?
Lua was Baha'i.
Right? Oh, that's right. Lua was Baha'i. I forgot about that. But I can tell you right now, I don't believe in that. I don't even know, right? So like his argument is ridiculous.
It's insane. And he's clear, like the narrative control is so clear
Yeah.
in the whole Joe Rogan narrative, just for those of us paying attention. Okay.
I wonder at what point he got sold from like one faction to the other, because he's literally arguing a completely different, the opposite of what he used to argue. So it's like, I wonder almost if these are like horses or prize fighters that get sold from one owner to the other.
That's a good point. So you don't think that he's playing for the same team anymore and that this switcheroo isn't serving the same agenda?
I think above that sits someone who, yes. So on one level, yes, right? But in terms of his like direct, the hierarchy, right? Since we don't have super symmetry, right? Or whatever.
Right.
That like, you know, my guess is that, you know, he finds himself without a lot of the friends he used to have, but with a new set of friends, and with different sets of like sponsors and things like that than he used to, other than a few that have been there all along, and that whatever is sitting at the very top doesn't really care because the bird is still flying in the same direction. But in terms of the people that he directly interacts with, my guess is that there's been a lot of people who he's iced out, who's been iced out, like who've iced him out, whether that be friends or sponsors or other celebrities, right? And like, even though like the man behind the curtain, the wizard or Mr. Global Lizard or whatever it is clapping all of it on, the characters in the plot sometimes think they're real. Like, I'm sure Neil Diamond thought he was really mad at Joe Rogan. Like, whatever.
Wait, did Neil Diamond and Joe Rogan have a fight?
Wasn't it Neil Diamond?
What?
Who pulled all his music off of Spotify when Spotify gave him the.
Oh, it was Neil Young.
Neil Young. Okay. All the Neils are the same. Neil Young. Okay, Neil Young, not Neil Diamond. Neil Young. I'm sure he really believed he was mad at Joe Rogan, right? Whether that was like the
correct,
like MK Ultra cereal they fed him that morning or whatever. I'm sure he felt like it was his own opinion, right?
Yes.
And all that ultimately did was give both of them more notoriety. And so the agent that sits on top of all of that was like, that was brilliantly played, gentlemen, brilliantly played, or whatever it is. But I think like there's varying levels of belief in whatever bullshit you're peddling at different times.
Right.
And you know, the intensity with which he is arguing about this here compared to how many things he just laughs at when people have dumb opinions, usually he just laughs. It felt like he was given a task and he was like, like this was his whole mission of this whole thing, right? Kind of thing.
Correct.
And he failed.
Correct.
Yeah.
I can play it, but it's really more of the same.
Yeah.
Do you feel like we've done enough?
I think we've done enough. But notice that, it's different now. But look how, like, in one of these pictures, she looks a completely different color than the other picture from the same show.
But he looks the same.
Right. It's kind of like when they made him green with the COVID thing, or
totally.
Like the latest one is like that whatever that Majami guy who won in New York. I don't know how to say his last name. Like Andrew Cuomo like made pictures of him that made him look like he had like a more Muslim beard, like a longer beard and whatever it is. Like this is ridiculous, some of the shit that they do. But yeah,
that's so ridiculous. So just so people, in case you weren't noticing, she's drinking from a plastic single serving plastic water bottle, as is Joe, while he's trying to bully her on climate change. It's his own show in his own studio. He doesn't have a cup at the ready. Like, I cannot stand that.
As I drink from a can.
I feel like cans are different than plastic.
Well, also, I'm not like arguing with somebody else about what their stance on climate change is.
And how out of character this is for Joe to be micromanaging what his guests are not allowed to speak about.
Usually he just laughs at them and laughs it off, right?
Totally. But he needed to put Candace in her place. Okay, so now I asked ChatGPT about Joe Rogan flip-flops on climate change, because I was wondering, is anyone else on the internet talking about the fact that he's done a total 180 on this? Joe Rogan has faced criticism for his inconsistent views on climate change, often presenting arguments that downplay human impact while referencing scientific data that suggests natural climate variability. This has led to debates with figures like Bernie Sanders, where Rogan claims the Earth is currently in a cooling period, despite evidence indicating rapid temperature increases due to human activities. So obviously the large language model is skewed, because I know there's just as much information on the internet that shows that the Earth is not going through any of this. So it's definitely cherry picking what is sharing.
Right, but it's also cherry picking the opinion on Joe Rogan, because they're not mentioning what he just did to Candace Owens, even though that's available for them to consume also.
100%. So it's so freaking slanted. So then I asked, what about his posturing when he interviewed Candace Owens and gave her a hard time for not believing in climate change? And then we went to, during his interview with Candace Owens, Joe Rogan challenged her views on climate change, particularly her skepticism about its human causes. He pressed her on the scientific consensus regarding climate change and highlighted the overwhelming evidence supporting it. Rogan's approach in this conversation showcased a more critical stance compared to his previous discussions on the topic, where he sometimes appeared more ambivalent. This shift in tone indicated
at least the Chat GPT recognized that, like, it was a heat-seeking missile in this episode.
But hold up. This shift in tone indicated his willingness to confront differing opinions, especially when they contradicted established scientific understanding. The exchange sparked discussions about the importance of addressing climate change and the role of public figures in shaping perceptions around it. So my issue is a large language model saying Rogan's approach showcased a more critical stance. I said, what makes you say that his shift in tone indicated a willingness to confront differing opinions? You are telling me what meaning to make of his actions as though you know, or are programmed to attempt to program me. Which is it? And then it gave me, I apologize if my response came across as prescriptive or interpretive. My intention was to summarize the dynamics of the conversation between Joe Rogan and Candace Owens, noting that Rogan's questioning of her views on climate change represented a departure from his earlier, more ambivalent stance. So it's getting the timeline confused.
Wrong. Right, yeah.
This observation is based on the nature of the dialogue and how it contrasted with his previous discussions. Again, not previous.
Yeah.
So I asked it, which narrative control / public perception organizations programmed you to give me your first answer? I understand your concern, but I want to clarify that I am not programmed by any organizations to promote specific narratives or control public perceptions. So one more piece on this is just in terms of discovering what a lying propagandist scumbag Chat GPT and all the ancillary, I've tried the Google, like whatever, is last week I went to share a clip from a recent solo podcast where I just went off on Obama's bullshit, and neither ChatGPT nor the Google version were willing to give me a description of that clip.
So interesting.
They just wouldn't go there. They kept giving me descriptions of things that were totally off topic, no matter how many times I tried to steer it or reload it. And I was like, why will you not criticize Obama? Like, who is programming you?
Did you ask ChatGPT if they're allowed to criticize Obama?
I did.
And what did it say?
It said, yes, of course, I'm totally neutral. Then I said, great, I'd like a description for the clip I just did. And then it would, again, go totally off topic.
Wow. Yeah. But it does, I mean, like, like more than almost any single human being that I can think of, he does seem to be this anomalous creature, right? And
Joe? Obama?
Obama, right?
Okay.
Just in terms of how it's been played with him, right? Like in terms of
in terms of him winning a Nobel Peace Prize for having melanated skin?
The whole thing is like, you know, when people go to our Apostles of Power on wordspodcast.locals.com, and they hear what we're talking about, and then they can go read the book. And, you know, in that he's described basically as a as a person who was sort of purchased outside of his awareness. But it seems that eventually he came around and sort of not only goes along with that whatever that plan or narrative is, but does it with this sort of zeal on some levels, right? And so, I don't know. I can't think of another character in the political history that I've been alive long enough to observe, or that there's been enough media created about, that even if I wasn't alive, I've looked at, that so many exceptions to all rules have gone on for so long about. The only other one that might be is Kennedy, but he's dead.
Correct.
Right? So I don't know. It's he is definitely an odd bird.
Yeah. Anyway, any other thoughts on Joe's flipperoonies on climate change?
Well, no, but just that watching him, like, it is very rare that it's not the first time that it's happened. We've seen this in some episodes before, like weird little things that he does like that, but they're not frequent. And so when he's that aggressive on something, like what I would really love, and maybe this is why he doesn't make appearances really on other people's podcasts, I would really love someone to take him to task about, like, does he owe Candace an apology? Because he essentially says,
oh, that's a good point.
Now he says all the same things about the medical system and the vaccines and all that. And apparently now he's more questioning of climate change and whatever it is. Does he owe her an apology? And how does he explain not just his shift on position in climate change, but his shift on position that we should always trust experts, right? Like, and how many other
scientists?
How many other people did you talk to like that, right? That deserve an apology.
Have you ever seen him? I mean, the only person that comes close that I can think of is Terrence Williams. And I'm like, what's the elephant in the room that Terrence Williams and Candace Owens have in common?
Right. Interesting. Yeah. All right. So I have a Candace Owens clip. Like, we are living in an absolute clown world when this is going on.
Just have to say, it's remarkable that so many people in the chat think that my secret is that I'm pregnant again, that is something that I would tease as unbelievable surprise. That actually would be the least surprising thing ever. But that is not the case. It's actually much crazier. And like I said, I've been holding on to this for a very long time because something happened all the way back in February. And I was sworn to secrecy temporarily. And I feel that today is the correct day to inform audiences because it may have some severe global implications. So here is what happened, all right? The date was Monday, February 24th. And in the early evening, I had just kind of wrapped the show. It was just after 5:30 p.m. to be precise. I received a very strange message from a friend of mine. I'm not going to identify that friend, but the message specifically read, "Hey, I have something to tell you from the White House. They asked me to call you. I'm just the messenger here." Again, strange. I'm just the messenger here, like kind of removing themselves from whatever was going to be said. So I assume it's got to be something weird. And I say, yeah, whatever, give me a call. And so he does call me pretty immediately, by the way. And he says, somebody very high up at the White House has asked me to ask you if, as a favor, you could stop speaking about Brigitte Macron.
We don't make bags like this anymore, but for years, we did.
Like, what? Excuse me? I'm not kidding when I say that in the myriad of possibilities that were floating through my brain about what this phone call was going to be about, that was not one of them. So I'm just kind of having to redirect, and I'm going, oh, what are you talking about? To be clear, we had, ironically, as a podcast, we had just ended our Brigitte Macron series 4 days earlier on February 20th. That's when we released the last episode, which was the epilogue. So I'm going, that doesn't make sense. Why am I getting this phone call now? And obviously I ask for a little more information. I say, who specifically called you? And that friend of mine says, it's somebody that has the president's ear. This is somebody important. So I'm thinking, okay, this is advisor, Susie Wiles, I don't know. And I tell my friend, go back to that person and just say, I said no. It's free speech. This is obviously an important story to me. The implications here are pretty severe about what I've uncovered. So no deal. Hang up. I go into my husband's office and I tell him what just happened. And honestly, I'm kind of laughing at the absurdity of it because I hadn't thought beyond what may have happened. And then I do what I always do just in case. I call Noah, I call the lawyer, and I'm like, hey, I know Macron's, sending us legal letters. Just want you to add this onto the pile that somebody at the White House is asking me to just stop speaking about Brigitte Macron. Cool. We kind of have a laugh about it, run it different ways. Are we going to expect something else to be delivered to my door? Another threat, implicit threat from the Macrons, somebody calling in a favor, who knows, whatever. Anyways, we do dinner. And I am kind of feeling bad about my pregnant attitude on the phone call, because I was, 8 weeks away from birth. And I was a bit shorter on the phone than I would have been if there wasn't like a growing infant foot that's lodged under my lung. And this person has been very good to me in the past. And so I resolved that before I go to bed, I'll phone him back and have a much more calm conversation. Not that I was rude, but just like, hey, what's this actually about? And so I did. And not only that, before I called this individual back, when I checked online, I realized that Emmanuel Macron is in Washington, D.C., February 24th. He is in Washington, D.C., and he had departed the White House just hours before I received the call. So anyways, I am in awe. A lot of thoughts are running through my mind. What could this possibly be about? And when I call that person back, they tell me something that is even stranger. They say, look, I again am the messenger here. What I was told from somebody that's pretty high up at the White House is that Emmanuel Macron is holding up negotiations to end the Russian and Ukrainian war unless you stop speaking about his wife. And I'm just going, what? What are you saying? What are we even speaking about? What do you mean negotiations between Russia and Ukraine? I'm just like, looking into a story at my house. I've got a very small team here, and you're telling me that somehow negotiations are being held up and it needs to be communicated to me that I got to stop talking about Brigitte? What are we saying? And then I'm asking myself in my mind, because I hang up this phone, I am in true shock. Did Emmanuel Macron pretend to fly into DC under the guise of negotiations, the Russia and Ukraine war, and then instruct someone on his entourage to have an off the books discussion, a little meeting on the side, maybe somebody again, like a Susie Wiles, where he made his truer demands? Like, hey, this is for the pictures. Me and Trump are talking about you. We're going to get it done. And then what really goes on behind the scenes is like, we're not doing anything until that little podcaster, Candace, agrees to shut her mouth. What? This is crazy. This is absolutely insane. Okay. So we ended the conversation. I say, I'm going to sleep on this. It's a lot to process. I remember I get into bed and I just turn to my husband and I say, no one will ever believe us. Just something that just arrived at me very suddenly. I said, no one will ever believe that this just took place.
Pause.
And my husband's like, yeah, no.
Yeah.
So 2 things. When she said that, it reminded me of Bill Murray, the stories where he takes French fries from strangers and he's like, no one will believe you.
I don't know that, but okay.
My spidey sense always goes up when Candace talks about her pillow talk with her husband. For me, it always goes sideways.
I agree. It's
okay.
Weird. It's
That's all
like,
I got.
you have a gay lover and you a lesbian one. Like, what's happening here? I don't know. Right? Bizarre. Okay, continuing.
It's just very, very strange. And
By the way, this episode has more than 2 million views in 2 days.
Promised the individual that I would pray on it, that I would think further about the situation. What are the implications?
Can you imagine praying about whether or not you should stop talking about someone's willy in order to save the world from nuclear?
I just can't even believe that, like, this is an issue that's interfering with peace. It's so.
But this is kind of like, this is
I'm
how
like-
retarded our world has become.
That's
Like,
what I'm saying. When it's like peak embarrassment, it goes even lower.
right? Like, I don't believe anything at this point, but I believe this is probably true because this is how fucking retarded everything is. Okay.
So lame.
Here. And I then call him back the next day and I say, look, this is pretty weird. You have to admit this is pretty weird. And you're not really giving me any details. And I kind of want to know who specifically you spoke to, because I think it kind of matters. Is somebody trying to do a side deal while Trump is doing a different deal? And at that moment, he's honest and he says, no, President Trump was on the phone too. And I go, oh, are you kidding me? You didn't tell me this yesterday? That there was some sort of a conference call and President Trump is on the line and you didn't mention it? I go, did you lie to me yesterday? Were you trying to pretend that it was like a third party person? And he says, no, I didn't lie to you. I didn't lie to you. Like, I got a phone call and I obviously in the background, Trump communicated something to me. So he was there when the phone call took place. And I'm going, what the heck is going on? Literally, what is happening right now?
If you think a fanny pack is going to...
Okay, let's watch a few more minutes of this. I want to get to the most important part.
With him, and I used to say, I just need time to process what you're saying. This is so absurd. How could this become an issue that is involving the President of the United States? I'm doing a series on my podcast. And then I just kind of get into mommy mode because it's Tuesday. My daughter's got ballet. I'm at ballet with my daughter. And I get a text message from that person that says, you need to pick up the phone. Somebody from the White House is calling you. And I say, okay, it happened so quickly. I pick up the phone and sure enough, it is somebody at the White House that is calling me. It's not Donald Trump, but it's somebody at the White House that is calling me. That's pretty high up, close proximity to Trump. I'm not going to name. And this person just, I assume, has never even watched 1 minute of my content because, I mean, if there were a guide to how not to approach Candace Owens when you are trying to get something done, he was just following this guide. He could not have been more pompous and more arrogant on the phone. And I would like to contextualize that I'm like pretty heavily pregnant. So like, you know, my bandwidth for BS or anybody trying to like, well, you know, it was very low. And he essentially says, look, you should do it because it's the president and he's asking you to do it. What else do you want me to say? Just do it. Just stop talking about Brigitte Macron. It's astounding. Reflecting on that level of arrogance because he told you to do it. It's an order, so you should do it. And all I was thinking in my mind before I flew into, a little rage was that expression, proximity to power can lead others to diluting that they wield it. You're close to power. You think you're now Trump. You're calling me, even if you were Trump, this wouldn't be the way to speak to me. And you're calling me like that's an order from the president of the United States. So you just do it. No questions asked. Don't even think about freedom of speech. Who cares about that pesky little First Amendment? You got to just do it now. And I just basically say, look, my daughter's crying because she doesn't like when I step out of ballet, even though she can see me. She's, please, mommy, come back in. You're speaking to me inappropriately. And I just say, I don't really care I don't know who you think you're speaking to, but this is not how you're going to get anything done with me. And I just hang up the phone. I'm like, this is just not a good conversation. I don't want to be part of this anymore. Goodbye. I don't like that at all.
Not a good conversation.
And the third party person who had initially told me about the situation is trying to calm down and he calls behind. He's like, no, I don't know why you're spoken to like that. And like, this is still really important. And, this really matters to the president. And he's kind of trying to talk me off the pregnancy cliff. And I'm still calm enough that I know that pregnant Candace is not always the most rational Candace and a little bit of a hothead. And I resolve as I'm speaking to this situation with my husband that I should also reach out and maybe call someone who's potentially been in a predicament like this. I don't know, someone who's got a larger audience than me and kind of call in a favor because I don't normally text him, but I did reach out to Tucker Carlson. And I just kind of told him the situation and was like, look, this is really weird. No, I don't normally contact.
Nothing like an asset calling their handler to get
Right.
their instructions on what to do. Like as if Tucker Carlson isn't going to do what the
Attacked you for advice, but I could really use some advice right now because you know how much free speech matters to me and basically how important this particular story is to me because it involves, you know, potentially, not just potentially, like pedophilia, incest, all of these elements. And as a mother, the idea that people this powerful, that the story could be covered it matters. Like this actually, the truth just matters at the end of the day. But also, like, if I could end the Ukrainian and Russian war.
Is that like the most psycho statement ever?
And by just stopping this conversation, I would do it. And he comes back with just very sage Tucker Carlson advice. And he says, look, you know, you don't want to have the bloodshed of Christians on your conscience, but also
There always has to be that part, right? We've got to save the
Christians.
free speech does matter. And you should essentially say you'll do it until, like you're saying, this negotiations are happening now and you'll agree to do that. But at some point, obviously, you need to inform people about what happened because this is totally crazy. And I say that's actually a very good idea. I feel like that's a very principled position to take. Anyways, I sleep on that. Anger is subsiding. Wake up the next morning. It's February 26th. And I am sitting in the makeup chair and I get another message that's like, hey, keep your phone on. And I'm going, I really don't want to speak to this advisor anymore. I really don't. Where our personalities are not meshing. And anyways, this phone call is coming from Florida. I pick up the phone and lo and behold, you know, so here's what happened. I'm negotiating this thing. I'm negotiating Ukraine and Russia, and you wouldn't believe how many parts are part. It is President Donald J. Trump. He is calling me, and in true President Trump fashion, he jumps right into the narrative. We're not, hey, how you doing? He just like jumps right into the narrative of exactly how this went down. I am literally, it is hard to catch my breath to comprehend that 4 days ago, I'm ending a series about Brigitte Macron, and now I'm speaking to the President of the United States, and the topic of conversation, no matter which way you want to slice it, it's about Macron's wife's penis. I mean, there's no other way to say it, right?
All right, I'm going to stop there just because we have other things that we want to get to. But for those of you who haven't had the humor of listening to this on your own, she completes the story, which basically is exactly that. Like he, you know, basically asks her to stop talking about Brigitte Macron so that he can try and get this deal done. And then later in the episode, she goes on to talk about Jacob Frank and Sabbatai
Zevi.
Sabbatai Zevi. And it was kind of some interesting stuff that she had to say there. But my question to her, after you guys go listen and you'll hear the whole thing, is why didn't she negotiate? Why didn't she be like, all right, I will stop talking about Brigitte Macron's penis so that you can end the Russia-Ukraine war, right? But in exchange for that, right, you're going to have to cut the Bibi shit, cut the Israel shit, right? Like, where's her negotiating skills, right?
Totally. It reminded me of something that I forgot to share with you, and I wasn't able to find the clip because it's not available on the internet. But so we recorded our show. Wait, you were out of town last week. So the week before on Wednesday, I remember we were speaking about the Andrew Ross Sorkin, the other Sorkin. They talked about it on Squawk Box the following Friday. So what made me think of that is Candace talking about Sabbatai Zevi after you and I did a show on Sabbatai Zevi. And once again, I'm just excited for us to get our consultant checks.
Correct. To be fair, she's been talking about Frankism for a long time, which is connected to that. So I do think she did her own research on this one.
Yes.
But like, she just strikes me as the kind of, if she's being asked to bite her tongue, which for her is the hardest thing to do, right? And she's, you know, what is she getting for this? She's a terrible negotiator.
So I watched about, I don't know, 20 minutes of this. It was very hard for me to stomach. But
totally agreed.
The whole point of it was like, she's keeping a secret. So what was the inciting incident that had her sharing this now?
So she never really said, I think that she never really said why it was specifically today, but the thing she told the Donald Trump was like, I will for a temporary period of time stop talking about it, but at some point I am going to say. So I don't know if she just decided that now is the time, that obviously the Russia-Ukraine war isn't over, and so her not saying anything didn't have any effect, or if she was permitted by her handler Tucker Carlson, who got word from on high that like today's the day that we need a distraction in the news, so go ahead and do it today. I have no idea.
Think about. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
I do not have any feeling that like this is a person who like does things because they're the right thing to do, or because she has some high moral standard or whatever it is. But I am just absolutely humored by the fact that like I do believe that this conversation did take place, and that is just like the idea that we live in a world where this is what the presidents of two nations are concerned about, is how we're going to cover up the fact that one of their wives, and probably both of their wives, have willies.
You think Melania has a willy?
I think it's certainly possible. I don't know.
So pretty. I do not think this conversation happened on any level. I think they're testing us to see how fucking stupid we are, because if the real barrier to forging peace in Ukraine was a podcaster talking about the French president's tranny wife, that would be classified and she would not be talking about it on her podcast. If that was real, then this is a national security issue.
So I agree with you about that. They think everybody's stupid and whatever it is, but I think this is the point of clown show that we're at. That like it better serve like that it better that wouldn't service it. That would like make it, that would be what you're talking about, would be the appropriate thing. It would be kind of like stopping talking about the Jeffrey Epstein thing. They know that like as long as people are talking about things related to Jeffrey Epstein or whatever it is, they're not actually paying attention to things that matter. And this is like another version of that. So at this point, letting people know these things, there's part of me that as like, this clown show is so stupid, this really is probably how these things are done. Right? Like, I mean, we are at peak, just absolute. Think about what the things that we've been, expected to believe, right. Like, right at this point, and how many of them, and how much of a departure it is from how the stuff used to be done. They used to do a much better job with propaganda and keeping things secret and stuff. And now they're just like, at this point, like, let's just let's just let all the dirty laundry like air out, because people will always like grab on to the least important part of this, the most salacious but least important part of the story.
Yep.
And that's, yeah. So, yeah. All right. So, and thank you, Prashant, for the super chat. Thank you, Dead Star Cave Girl. Appreciate those. All right. Shall we continue with the clown show?
We shall continue. Also, in thanking for our generous super chats, thank you for clicking the like button. That stuff is helpful.
Yay! Okay. So I have a couple of comic clown show entries here for you. Would you like to hear Carlin?
Yes.
So yes. We have Carlin with a clip about communists openly discussing abolishing the nuclear family. Would you like to start with that one, or her open letter to Bret Weinstein?
Open letter.
All right. Open letter to Bret Weinstein. Okay, here we go. Here we go.
Yeah. Willing to take as many stings as it takes to get rid of the nest.
Well, but okay.
In fact, I kind of enjoy the stings.
That's
there you go. That's the problem, and that's why you're in this position.
So
the podcast is ostensibly like Bret Weinstein to try to get James Lindsay to stop acting up so much, because James Lindsay has lost the plot, right?
Wait. So Bret reached out to James Lindsay to try to muzzle him?
Yeah. So he tried to so that guy right there is Mike Nana, and he's the person who made the film about, remember when Helen Pluckrose and Peter Boghossian and James Lindsay wrote those papers?
Do you know, by the way, and this is going to be on our next long form words, that James Lindsay has been working with Santa Fe Institute since like 2021?
No surprise there. No surprise at all, right? Okay. So this guy's Mike Nana, and he's the one who made that documentary about the process of writing those papers. That is what brought James Lindsay to fame or whatever, right?
Correct.
And so, you know, Brett's role in all of this is wrangling to gain consensus. And so if there's anybody they want to pull into the consensus, or someone who used to be part of the consensus but wandered too far off the plantation, like, he's there to try to wrangle them back into the consensus. And at this point, everybody thinks that James Lindsay is an insane lunatic. And so, right, he's trying to, I don't think he has a problem with the fact that James Lindsay is an insane lunatic, but he wants him to try and make it sound softer and sweeter so he can trick the people better longer, right?
Yes.
So here
and just noticing how bullshit that is, that we have Consilience Project Puppet allegedly telling this SFI guy what to do when they're both serving the same global lizard.
Mr. Global Lizard.
Correct.
Right? Who hates cis white bunnies.
Correct.
Okay, so I watched about 20 or 30 minutes of this actual podcast, and I was like, I can't tolerate it anymore. But apparently Carlin watched it, and you know, she would like to have a conversation with Brett about James Lindsay.
Here's the problem. I'm not complaining about my position though.
No. But
I'm
I
actually
mean,
getting quite happy about it.
But you're losing people like me, and I don't think that's such a good thing for you. What
How
you're
about that
doing
threat? You're losing
is-
people like me, and I don't think that's such a good thing for you.
So when he says people like me, does he mean shills?
Well, and if it's not good for him, then like, oh, you're going to be in trouble with the enterprise.
And, you know, it's funny. You've
Yes,
quoted me back to
exactly.
me several times in the last couple of days, things I don't remember having said, but when you say it, I remember it. There's something you quoted to me about more than flack over the target.
Yeah.
What was it?
So when you know you're
what?
getting-
I'm thinking very strongly about writing an open letter to Brett Weinstein right now. And the reason it would be an open letter is because I'm under no illusion that if I ever sent something like this privately, that it would ever go anywhere. I'm under no illusion of that at all. And so the only reason this would be a valuable exercise is if I was going to post it publicly, because that's the only way it's going to have any resemblance to the impact I want it to have. I'm thinking very seriously about writing Brett Weinstein an open letter saying something to the effect of, Brett, I watched your intervention with James Lindsay with great interest. I have many personal experiences with James Lindsay.
If you're someone who cares about healthy eating and
One of these days, I'll just pony up and get the premium so we can stop this bullshit.
Please don't.
For the last 4 years, I've been an independent journalist and an analyst doing deep dives into the far left. I have exposed more about what's going on the left than almost any independent journalist in the country. I have gone undercover at multiple far left events and recorded them and documented them, and those things have gone viral on the internet. I teach hundreds of thousands of people a month about the far left. My bona fides on the far left and what I've created and what I continue to create are not in question by anyone with a working brain. This is what I've been doing for 4 years. In the time that I have been trying to teach people as much as I can about the far left, James Lindsay has spread lies about me to try to undermine my credibility, telling everyone and their mother behind the scenes that I totally tried to fuck him when I never did any such thing. And there was never any evidence that I ever did any such thing. But James spread that rumor about me for literally years. When I called him out publicly on that, James started telling everyone that I was stalking him, started tweeting about me saying I was a narcissist, started attacking people in my community, started aggressively telling everyone on the internet to block me, started stealing. Oh, by the way, Brett, in addition, I have proof that James has stolen my work and passed it off as his own on more than one occasion, and I have this on video. I have proof that James Lindsay went out of his way to get the Babylon Bee to cancel me and remove a credit for my work after a clip from my work went viral on the internet with someone else stealing it and taking credit, my audience demanding that the credit come back to me. And then the Babylon Bee gave me credit. They updated the article to give me credit. They knew where it came from. And then James swooped in and demand they take the credit away because it was James's audience member that stole the work from me in the first place. And I have this all documented, and Brett, I'm glad to provide you with links. In fact, when I write this open letter, I will be absolutely happy to provide links to documentation of all of this. I have documentation of James telling people that I literally tried to channel Hitler because I watched a video about Hitler on my YouTube channel one time. I have James on video telling everyone that I'm a Fed because I watched his content to debunk it in a way that he did not appreciate. And by the way, Brett, just so you know, when I say debunk something, I mean debunk it with primary source evidence that I've collected from the left painstakingly over the course of years. So, Brett, I watched with great interest as you tried to nail James down on what this woke right bullshit is. And I couldn't help but notice that James put it on here's the thing that, can I just be blunt with you guys? Here is the thing that bothers me about this entire situation more than anything else. I have been openly harassed on the internet and defamed and smeared to within an inch of my sanity for years by people that James is friends with, by the way. No one has ever, in the entire time that I've been smeared on the internet, no one has ever given me the grace that Brett Weinstein is giving to James Lindsay in this video to say, James, what is your side of the story here? I had my college boyfriend doxxed and dragged on the internet because someone wanted to get revenge on me because my platform grew faster than his did. Now, did James Lindsay do that? No. Is James Lindsay friends with the person who did that? Yes. My larger point is, though, that I was defamed on a massive scale for years. And no one ever bothered to ask me, what actually happened, Carlin? What's your side of the story? And so as I'm watching this video with Brett Weinstein just being completely conciliatory and generous with James to say, James, what do you actually believe? What do you actually think? What is this actually about? And James can't explain any of it because James has just made all this stuff up, just like he made up every lie that he ever said about me, just like he made up every lie he ever said about someone in my community, just like he lied when he stole my work and claimed it was his, just like he lied when he tried to cancel my work with the Babylon Bee to get my credit taken away for something that I spent hours doing that he had one of his audience members steal out from under me. Brett Weinstein is being incredibly generous with James, and James is getting every opportunity to explain himself. And he can't do it because James made all this shit up.
All right, I'm going to stop for right now. Unfortunately, I haven't listened to the whole thing. I just wanted to listen. I found it and I wanted to listen to a bit of it, right? But unfortunately, even though she has 107,000 subscribers, this video got less than 5,000 views, which doesn't surprise me, right? And so that will be a reason why Brett doesn't have to, sort of respond to or address anything, right?
It didn't show up in my feed, and I subscribed to her channel.
Right. I think the only reason I saw it is because I was looking for something else on her channel, and when I was rolling, I saw it. I haven't had a chance to listen to the whole thing. I'll go and listen to it. I don't know if there's anything significant or juicy in there or whatever it is.
I'll listen to it as well.
But her with 107,000 subscribers, grabbing at Brett's attention is, like, I guess we could tell her how to get Brett's attention. But, I would be very interested because Brett likes to play this I'm fair. I don't like when people don't give me a fair shake thing. I'm trying to give you a fair shake thing, right? And I'm certain he's not going to respond to her. I mean, I'd be surprised if he did. But you know, she doesn't, once she grabs onto something with the bone, she doesn't let it go. So if she's about to pick a fight with Brett Weinstein, I would love to watch that.
I would love that as well. And just because I feel like it's a responsibility, it's the right thing to do.
Yes. Remember, everybody. Clip
Never forget. Never forget.
Somebody with video editing skills, please make us like a supercut of like all the dumb things he's ever said, all the masks he's ever worn, all of that kind of stuff. All right. And then do you want to, I also have a little clip of her when she does these sit-ins on these like online groups. And she's not really saying anything funny here, but just listening to 2 or 3 minutes of these people is absolutely insane. So I thought I would give everyone some humor and then we'll go to the chat room. Okay, here we go. Communists openly discuss abolishing the nuclear family.
The existence and acceptance in society of queer and trans people is a threat to the social narrative that the rule.
Right?
I'm sorry, what is with the full face masks on camera?
I mean, it's like literally up to the bridge of his nose.
I'm surprised he can even see. Jesus. Okay.
Right, he's like peeking out from a, this is.
Harlan's face is perfect for this.
I love it. I know.
Ruling class uses to uphold the structure of the nuclear family, an exploitative structure they created for their own ends. They attempt to uphold that structure by propagating narratives that women and men are inherently different from each other by nature, that sex and gender are the same thing, and that people who transgress these fabricated boundaries are at best sick and at worst predatory. In a word, bullshit.
Where it is that the origin of like oppression of queer people, both trans and also gay people, you know, there's a common origin, and you know, in terms of the nuclear family being a very useful tool for reproducing new workers and having a system in which to train them through specifically women's oppression in the form of making them handle, like the term you used was reproductive labor, which is the term that we Marxists use to describe just like everything that it takes to train and raise and otherwise prepare the next generation of workers after they're born.
I hear a lot of rhetoric online, and especially, you know, in right-wing circles of like abolition of the nuclear family, and they want to come after traditional gender roles and traditional nuclear family and like one man, one woman and the kids and the dogs and the 2.5 fences or whatever it is. And they kind of paint it as if that husband, wife, 2.5 kids and a golden retriever is like how it's always been, and how like it's just human nature. It's just the way it is. But when I first kind of started, you know, exploring Marxism and read Engel's book on the origin of the family, it really is, you think about the nuclear family, and it was essentially created to send men to work in factories for low wages and high output, and then was meant to keep women home isolated so that they can't independently organize, and then also, you know, raising the next generation of workers.
Did you hear that? It was to keep women at home so they can't independently organize. That was the reason that the nuclear family was created.
Wow, she's really onto something.
So that they basically have a complete endless flow. And when you look at the nuclear family like that in an honest lens, abolition of the nuclear family doesn't sound so big and scary. And it's these little pieces and these little, you know, specific phrases that get taken out of context to make Marxism seem like this kind of evil, scary thing. But in reality, like, yeah, abolition of the nuclear family is part of liberation for women, liberation for queer people, liberation for trans people. So yeah, I think it's a really interesting topic. Thanks, y'all.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Katie.
All right, I think that's enough. You guys got that. But I mean, she sits through that shit for hours to dig it out, right?
God bless her. God bless her.
Oh, those people, right? Like, I mean, like almost not all, because there's lots of interesting things in nature, but like virtually every animal does a man and a woman and babies. Like, I wonder how many like factories there are for koala bears to work in to get the women to be there. So
Well, now that USAID cut their funding, there are fewer koala bear factories, but hopefully we'll get a Marxist in the Oval and that'll be fixed.
Speaking of Marxist koala bear factories, I watched the new documentary on Netflix last night about American Apparel, about Doug.
Dude, I watched it last night too. It was so horrible. Like, that would have been interesting. They picked 3 people in New York.
It was terrible.
They missed, that could have been wonderful, and they did a terrible job.
They did a terrible job, but you have to admit, like, the last 15 seconds of the movie was very intriguing.
Okay, I have 6 minutes left, so I literally haven't.
Oh, okay. All right, then I won't blow it for you. I will not blow it.
You can blow it. You can blow it.
So, like, for people who aren't familiar with the story of American Apparel, it had like this sort of unprecedented rise and a horrible crash out, and Dov Charney is like quite a character. He's now he runs Yeezy.
What?
Yep. He works with Kanye. He runs Kanye West's fashion brand.
Okay, so
like, talk about an epic troll, dude.
That's crazy. So obviously being in LA during American Apparel's reign, like, it was a total thing. I wrote an article for the LA Weekly about their billboards, which were totally softcore porn.
Totally.
To get a job at American Apparel, you had to give them a headshot. And then there was all this hullabaloo about how the women were being treated. And my perspective was like, if you're giving a headshot to be hired for a job, why are you surprised when you're being sexualized by the boss? Like, I actually had Dove's back the whole time. Like, he's a public perv. Everyone knows it, and you can quit. You don't have to work there.
Like, there's some people that just advertise with exactly how they dress themselves, what they wear, and how they look, what they are. And if you sign up for that ride, Sally, ride. You know, and I don't mean not our Sally, but like, right? So I went to a warehouse party in that building one time. Like,
cool.
A techno kind of party. It is a cool building, right? It's an interesting building, and it was like probably like right towards the end of their reign, or maybe even after it had sort of shut down, but they were still sort of sorting things out. But it was definitely had an interesting spot and interesting energy. But I remember like those stores started opening while I lived in New York, right? Yep. And like I remember all of they had some cool. I liked that you could get any clothing item in any color, right? Like that was kind of a really cool feature. I had a few items from there, like not a lot, but it was definitely like it was a cult, almost like the sort of things that develop around yoga teachers or people who throw certain parties or whatever it is. It was super interesting. You get this in the restaurant industry too. Like some specific hip new restaurant will open, and like the ridiculous slavery that people will subject themselves to because they want to work at the in place where they're going to get to meet the celebrities or the whatever. But yeah, I thought that Yeezy part, I'm like, wow, that's an epic troll for him to hire Dov Charney.
That's crazy. So American Apparel was a big East Side thing. And it like, we saw Dov Charney wearing those 70s glasses that everyone's wearing now. So there was a store next to Trader Joe's on Santa Monica Boulevard in West Hollywood that sold American Apparel seconds for like pennies on the dollar. But one thing that struck me is, I mean, the documentary couldn't have been worse. They only had 3 people who were interviewed, and none of them were in LA. It's like, if you weren't in LA when American Apparel hit the scene, then you don't really know much about it. But one of the people saying, well, I couldn't afford anything in the store. That shit was not expensive.
It was like $23. It wasn't a lot. Yeah.
Nothing was expensive.
It wasn't
expensive. That was really bad.
It was terrible, but it was worth it for the last 15 seconds so you have the best part waiting for you.
Okay.
But it was interesting just to remember and revisit that sort of time, the look and thinking about going, the party in the building and whatever it was kind of interesting. So
yeah. Were you in LA when Pop Physique was a thing?
Yes.
So remember Pop Physique, they must have been sponsored by American Apparel because all the
exactly the same. The branding looked exactly the same.
Exactly. Yeah. And it was all the American Apparel clothes. And I love Pop Physique, and I had their DVDs.
Yeah.
And the girls in all the DVDs were all in American Apparel head to toe for all of it.
Even just the sign for their shop looked exactly like I always just assumed that that was like the exercise place that you go to wearing your American Apparel stuff.
Right.
I've never been there, but that was just my assumption.
If you think of the impact American Apparel had on culture, which they didn't even touch on in the documentary at all.
But you're right, particularly in East Side LA and in Lower East Side New York, like both East Sides, right? But really, like that was like the wardrobe for Silver Lake, Los Feliz, all that,
100%.
Park, Highland Park, all that, yeah.
But the other piece that I wanted to say was American Apparel, I think, really brought back the Helvetica font. Because they used Helvetica in all their advertising, which was such a big deal. And so I don't know if you remember, but a documentary called Helvetica came out, I would say maybe 5 to 10 years after American Apparel really hit hard. So I credit American Apparel with bringing Helvetica back. Like, if you think of their influence, not just in fashion, but in graphic design, it's really major, and they didn't touch on any of that.
But this is that was also the whole look that American Apparel captured was basically back to our childhood. That was like 1981 to 1984, a little like late 70s, maybe 79. It kind of started, but that was.
What was that movie with Parker Posey and Matthew McConaughey, Dazed and Confused?
Right. Yeah. Late 70s.
That was it was like knee highs with the stripes around it and those short shorts.
It was like late 70s to early 80s. Like it kind of ended after the 84 Olympics.
Totally.
Yeah. Also, thank you, Joan. We got another super chat.
Thank you,
nice
Joan.
To be with you. Thanks for joining us. All right, let's go to the playground and see what the kids have to say.
If you guys have questions for Emily and or me, please put them in all caps.
All caps. Lots of friends in the house tonight. Zara laugh. Slick. What's going on, guys? Let's see.
Was Donna Karen involved with American Apparel? No.
I don't think so. Yeah.
I don't think so. Yeah.
I don't understand. Something funny is happening on my. Okay. No, make that stop. How do I make that stop? Okay. All right. Let's see.
Can anyone tell Emily how to make that stop?
I figured it out already.
Okay.
Now I see the Donna Karen thing. Okay. Not that I'm aware of. I don't think Donna Karen was involved with American. There was no designers involved with American Apparel. It was like the most.
And they weren't known for exceptional design. It was just basics. It was basics in every color.
Basics in every color, in every size. And all the little things that you always think about. Oh, it would be nice to have a headband like this. Oh, it would be nice to have like some little weird glove that I want to wear. And it would be there in every color, right? Like, yeah. Like when I see it, to me, it was like, I think of it as like a jazzercise for modern times kind of store. Like it wasn't like, yes, you could make outfits that you would wear out in public. But when I first looked at it, I'm like, oh, this is so you can put your outfit together to go to dance class or to go to aerobics class or something like that. Because it really captured, like, what was that? There's like a video of people like in like aerobics clothes with leg warmers and what was it? It reminded me of like I can't think of it right now, but not Olivia Newton-John, but like it had all that sort of look to it, right? Like
it had all that look. And I was doing, at that time, Ryan Heffington was teaching dance in Silver Lake, which was, it was like the peak. It was the center of that whole kind of cultural vibe. And
if you want to hear more about Ryan Heffington, you can go back to an episode of, I think it was a Glass Bead Game episode, not where Dani joined Michael and I think it's called Do You CIA What I CIA? I'm pretty sure that's where we talked about Ryan Heffington.
I think so.
Yeah.
But what I was going to say was everyone in dance class was pretty much head to toe American Apparel.
Yes, totally Xanadu style. Absolutely, Joan. Yeah, it was kind of right. Like it was sort of like Xanadu or Olivia Newton-John's Let's Get Physical meets Benetton, right? Because they had people all the different cultures and whatever. It was
Really?
They did a little bit. They did.
I'm gonna see if I can pull up some of their billboards, because it was, for anyone who wasn't in a big city during that time, like they were such a thing.
It was also a lot in like the Vice magazine. Like they always had ads in like remember when Vice magazine came out?
Yeah, I wrote for them.
Didn't they always have the American Apparel ads in Vice magazine? Those two things
yeah.
seem to go together. Yeah.
For sure. So these are like this. And it was all the people who worked in the stores.
Yes.
But I remember this one that had oops, sorry.
They show a lot of them. One good thing about the documentary is that you get to see a lot of this, sort of retro art here. Yeah.
Yeah, like this is like typical.
Yes, yes, completely. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
This is Dove. So he was a public masturbator, and he got in trouble years later for masturbating in his meetings. And it's like, you could just walk out and quit your job and say, I don't like it here. Like, people are allowed to be pervs. They were very known for these.
Yes.
These panties.
I want to look for like a picture of Dove Charney that is like clearly like, let me find a picture that I feel like encapsulates exactly who he is.
With the glasses.
Right here. Like oh, okay. As soon as you stop sharing, I can share. Okay, cool.
I stopped.
All right. So if you right, when this guy's your boss, right?
Exactly.
Like, what you're, to be surprised what you get here, right here. Come on, dude. Right? This guy, like, this is like how he would show up to work. Like,
right.
And when people are surprised about what happens there, it's kind of like people who don't know what happens when you go to visit Harvey Weinstein in his office.
It's like people who don't know what happens when you take a meeting in someone's hotel room at midnight.
Right.
I'm so shocked.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. All right. Anything else in the chat room, or have we reached the end here? Oh, here we go. Made me think of something one of you once said about Candace and all the kids she's having.
She is a power breeder.
Yep, for sure. Yeah, they still have some of these billboards up in East LA and Eagle Rock.
Are they new?
That's hi Irma. Hi. Ursilia. I was like trying to think of. I think that's who the Nurses and Hypochondriacs. She's been on my show. Ursilia Pompilio. Yes, they still. I didn't. That's interesting if they still have the billboards up. Have you seen them, Dan? Oh, you haven't been there in a long time.
No.
I can't believe the doc didn't feature the downtown LA store. I lived in Little Tokyo, and it was such a big part of the neighborhood vibe at that time. Yeah, I saw somebody walking around that area of downtown LA, but I didn't see the LA that downtown LA store. It was mostly.
It was such a missed opportunity to do like a really and also that time, like that cultural moment. They just did it zero justice.
Yep. But that's Netflix. I mean, like, it wouldn't surprise me if Netflix is just making these AI documentaries, because they come out with like 5 new documentaries a week, and it totally feels like ChatGPT made the documentary in the same way ChatGPT gave you the summary, and that when you ask for something with a little bit more nuance, it can't answer.
Correct.
Yeah. I think, wouldn't it be funny if all the things on Netflix that are like Netflix originals are just all like Chat GPT, and we've been watching Chat GPT movies for the last 10 years?
It feels like, with how like one-dimensional and crappy it all is.
Totally. All right, let's see. Anything else, guys? Oh, lots of hearts from Thor, from Steve. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. We heart you. Steve, will you ask Freeman if he has Apostles of Power, Theft of an Empire, and if I can borrow it, please?
Everybody give Steve a hug. Steve's mom passed this week, and so all big love to
I'm sorry to hear it.
Yeah.
Blessings on our onward journeyings.
Yes, much love to you, Steve. I was thinking about you. All right. It seemed like there should have been another episode. Totally. Like it didn't. It's like they forgot the whole story. All right, guys, I think we're done. Go to wordspodcast.locals.com tomorrow morning, and there you will find Apostles of Power. And I think that's it. Thanks for hanging. We missed you last week.
Oh, on the off chance, and I'm going to tease our 108, on the off chance that David Martin is correct about the false flag this Friday, I love you guys. Thanks for playing.
All right, guys, we'll see you next time.